Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am here with my 2026 LCS player rankings. So, first and foremost, this is separate from my team power rankings. I did those before. If you want to check out that video, I'll have it up in the card and in the description. But this is separate from my team power rankings. This is me looking at the meta and data from each player in their career, essentially, and culminating it in a ranking of who I think is going to be the best to worst jungler in the LCS or top laner or mid laner, etc., for all five roles. And last but not least, before we get started here, obviously this is my opinion. This is you can disagree, you can debate, you can fight. So please let me know what you think below. Please be nice to others if other people disagree with you. But a lot of these people I have not seen play, or I've only heard about or seen their stats. But I can assure you, I've done my due diligence. I have researched what champions they like to play, what stats they have, what their success rate has been on different teams, etc. So I do know a fair amount about these players, even if I haven't seen them play. But these are my rankings for the players in the LCS in 2026. Starting off with the top lane, I wanted to go over some of the changes and what I think the meta is going to be first. So, first and foremost, they have higher XP than everyone else. They have an increased level cap and they gain XP faster. So they can now go up to level 20. I think this is going to be a pretty crucial change for the top lane. Alongside that, they are better at split pushing and sieging than ever before. Home guards makes it very easy for them to get back to lane faster. The crystalline overgrowth on the towers, alongside demolish changes, making it every third auto once you have that demolish proc, is very, very good at helping anyone take down towers, not just our classic split push characters. So that is going to have a very big impact on the meta for pro play. The last point I have here is that it's even more snowbally. If you get ahead in top lane and you're able to punish your lane opponent, it's harder for people to gank. It's harder for anyone to kind of shut you down. You'll be multiple levels ahead of the enemies rather than just one or two. And so overall, top lane is going to be very lane phase focused in 2026. And that's kind of my overall meta read here. So this is my player ranking for the LCS top laners. So number one, I'll go through this pretty quickly here and then I'll kind of explain in depth later. But my ranking is Thanatos number one, Fudge number two, Morgan number three, Castle number four, Dokla number five, Gakgos number six, Impact number seven, and Photon number eight. So those are my 1 through 8 for the different top laners. And now I'll tell you just a little bit about them. So I think that Thanatos is the best laning top laner for sure in the LCS. And since I think, as I said in the last slide, the meta is going to be a lot focused on laning, I think that really is going to make the difference. I think he is far and away the best top laner in the league right now. He likes to play champions that are very conducive to that play style. He can play split pushers, he can play solo carries, he can play high resource carries and beat people in lane. And that is really what's going to make the difference in top lane in the LCS lock-in tournament, at least. Who knows if the meta is going to change after that. But right behind him, I put Fudge. I think I was going to put him lower, but I think what really changed my opinion on that was the Pros podcast I actually put out just the other day. They talked about how Fudge has always been very matchup knowledgeable, how he always knows how matchups should be played, and he's very good at playing them out as they should be. And I really think that is going to be an invaluable skill in this meta. And so that for that reason, I moved up Fudge. I made sure that he was high number two. I was going to have him probably 3 or 4, but number two is where I think Fudge is going to sit. He does play some good champions for that too. He can kind of play both styles, but I think he is really going to thrive in this meta. Number three, we got Morgan, who I have never actually seen play, but I've heard a lot about playing in the LCK last year. And I think that based on our top lane talent, we do have some strong top laners. but based on our top lane talent, I think Morgan is going to be very good. I know he has a very high ceiling, has beaten some of the better top laners in the LCK before. And I think that based on the stats that I saw on the site that I also have linked down below, I think Morgan's going to do very well with his champion pool and with how he likes to play the game. So that is my read on Morgan. It could change. That was probably one of my least certain ratings, but I think he's going to end up being like 3 or 4 in the league. Right behind him is Castle, um, which you can see my little mark on the thing there. Most skilled on a bad team. And I think that about sums it up for Castle. He's always managed to look good on teams that were bad. So I think, if he can continue to look good on bad teams, I think he is still one of the best top laners. It doesn't really matter if his team's winning or not. I also think that this meta is pretty conducive to him. If he can get resources on the disguised team, and if he can actually play it out, and not get, camped or pushed out of the game, I think it's really going to help Castle kind of shine in 2026. And honestly, I wish the best for him. I think he's kind of been elo held by his team a lot, and I think if he can really push past that, it'll be a good season for him. Next, we have Dokla, who I did put number 5. I really wanted to put higher, but there was this discussion that Jat had about his stats too, and I don't think his stats are good enough to push him any higher. I know that he works well on most teams. He's one of my personal favorite poke players, but I think he is number 5 in the league. I think he's incredibly consistent. I think he plays the role very well, but this is also kind of a switch up. It's not exactly his style of play that we've seen him play recently, and if he can adapt, that's awesome. If he can adapt, he might be more like 4 or 3, honestly. But based on what we saw him play last season for 100 Thieves, kind of the weak side warrior, um, yeah, I think he's going to be about a 5th place for the LCS in 2026. All right, on to Gakgos right below him. I think Gakgos has a lot to prove. I've heard from a lot of different interviews from a lot of different players that he is really good, that he's doing well in scrims, he's doing really good, people are respecting him, and I think if that Gakgos shows up on stage, he could even go above Dokla, he could even go above Castle, depending on results. So this is one, again, where I'm pretty uncertain, but I think he's going to end up like right here. He had a little bit of experience with FlyQuest last year, but I think it's going to take some more time for him to develop, especially with how young the FlyQuest roster is. So, Gakos, number 6. This is one that I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for, but I put Impact at number 7. After last year, I don't think Impact is going to do very well. This isn't his meta. He seems like he's committed to still playing, but he just has not been showing the good side of Impact that we've known for so long. I put his I put his status up there as most unk. He is pretty old, has obviously been playing a very, very long time. But unless he does something really crazy and starts like 1v9 carrying with an XP lead and doing really well and starts winning his lanes, I can't really see a way that he's above the 6th through 8th mark, bottom half, bottom tier LCS top laner. And last but not least, we have Photon. I do really like Photon's creativity. I watched the Kled game when he debuted for Dignitas in the LTA, but I think that he's not really going to go anywhere with the roster that Dignitas has. I think he definitely has the most to prove. That's what I put on there. I think if he can prove that he can beat these other top laners, maybe he pushes out of 8th, maybe he pushes into 6th or 7th. But besides that, I think he's going to be one of the weakest top laners in the league, and that's why I have him at number 8. So this is my top lane rating. Please let me know what you think below once again. But these are my 8 players in order. I think it's a pretty good rating. I think it's one of my best ratings. I think it'll be pretty accurate to what we'll see once we get some games done in the split in just over a week. And now on to the jungle changes, moving into our jungle rating once again. So these are the different changes that I had listed for the jungle. I think these are the highest impact changes made. People say that jungle hasn't really changed a lot. I think that's mostly true. I think it's probably the least changed role from last season into this season. But there are a few things that I think do affect it. So the game starts sooner. Jungle camps spawn 30 seconds sooner. Minions spawn 30 seconds sooner. So the game just starts sooner off the bat. And that is a big change for jungles because you can't really ward buffs. You can't really look to invade. It's like you have to start, you have to take your camps, game starting. Go. Alongside that, you have increased XP from camps, which I think is going to be very, very important. As a little bit of spoiler alert, but you see my fourth point there, that I think this is going to be a full clear meta. So increased XP from camps makes full clearing even more valuable. I think that is going to be a really, really important part of jungle is just clear and clear and clear and clear. Alongside that, there's the Fey Lights, which is the other reason why it is going to be a full clear meta in my mind. There's more vision. Laners are safer. It's harder to gank. They can see more and see it more often. And I think that is going to make jungle's life a lot harder unless you're just full clear on camps. So I think this is 100% from my read going to be a full clear meta. And if I'm wrong about that, feel free to come back later and tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm dumb, whatever it is. But I really, really think this is going to be full clear central for a lot of 2026, at least until some tweaks are made to these jungle changes. So, on to the jungle player rating here. And as you can see, in order, I have Inspired, Blabber, Contracts, Griffin, Hambach, XU, Jose, and Kryra. And this one was a little bit harder than top lane to try and categorize, but I think I did a good job here choosing my rating. Um, Going into a little more depth on these guys, Inspired, obviously, best in the West, just the best jungler that we have over here. He has been known for full clearing as kind of his comfort. He's really good at full clearing, does it very precisely, finds guaranteed ganks out of full clears very often. I think it's going to be the same story this season. I actually saw in an interview, I can't remember who was talking about Inspired, but they said that he was really opening up to trying to do more in the early game. And I think that's going to be both a blessing and a curse. I think if he does more in the early game, it could really help Lion get ahead and get accelerated with the talent that they have. But I don't think he needs to do anything really in the early game. I think he needs to full clear, he needs to get strong, he needs to play for Berserker and Saint, and that's about it. But either way, this meta is exactly what Inspired has proven that he is so, so good at all of 2025. So, I think far and away, number one, above all else, S plus tier, Inspired. Next in line, we have Blabber, and I was debating putting some other people above Blabber, but I do think that he is the second best jungler in the LCS. I think that people have been saying, he's kind of choking, he's not really been performing as well recently. I still think that he is the number one jungler here. I think he can play the full clear style. I think he's better at kind of the fighting, skirmishing junglers. So I would maybe predict him to go with more of an invade style. If he likes to play invade champs, go for stealing camps. His most played champion all time is Lee Sin, which I saw on the stats. But he does play champions like Lilia, like Nocturne, like Udyr, and they really like this full clear meta and full clear style. So I think this meta will suit him. I think he can find a way to play in it. And above all else, I think he's still one of the best junglers we have in the LCS. So he's definitely deserved in number two. Number three, I have Contracts, who I have most clutch, which is, I think, a very, very accurate rating. When NRG beat G2 in 2024, I think it was completely on the back of Contracts. I mean, looking at that roster with those players, I don't think there's any way people would have expected them to make quarterfinals, and they did. And most of it was because of Contracts, making plays, finding angles, doing all that. Now, that said, this is going to be a full clear meta. So I don't know how Contract's going to do with that. I know he does play some of our standard full clear champions, but I think he's going to have to adapt to making crazy plays while dodging vision, while exploiting flashes. And I think he's going to be the most creative solution to kind of breaking the full clear meta. And that's why I have him at number three. I think he has a lot of potential to do that. And onto Griffin, kind of a similar deal. I think he's one of the most exciting junglers we have here. I think he can definitely find a way to break it. In the pros interview, he seemed like he was very keen on trying to play around the new vision rather than trying to kind of ignore it in full clear. He wanted to play around it, find angles anyways, find creative solutions. And that's why I have him here above maybe some other junglers you'd be surprised are below Griffin. I think he's going to style on them. I think he's going to have an insane debut, playing Korea Tier 3, playing in the CB LoL last year in the LTA South, technically. I think he's had all the experience he needs. I think he's learned a lot. He's 19. I think he's just gonna out hand stiff and out like jungle, out straight up out jungle all the rest of these people on the list below him, at least. I do think he's going to have some growing pains at some point in the year, but I think overall he's going to be the fourth best jungler in the LCS. On to Hambach. And obviously, I don't know as much about Hambach. I called him kind of, unpredictable. I do see on his stats page that he really, really fits the meta. He plays a lot of Lilia, a lot of full clear champions. So if he can play that meta and Sentinels can play around him, playing full clear champions, I think he will be really good, which is why I kind of have him here. I think he's going to be a very solid meta fit, even though I don't know his exact skill level yet. I think he's going to fit the meta enough, and that's enough for me to put him above the bottom tier junglers on the list. And on to XU next. XU kind of showed us the ceiling that he had on DSG last year. He had that incredible Vi game where he basically popped off against Cloud9. And that was really cool to see. Or the Lee Sin game, either one. I think it was both, Vi and Lee Sin game. But XU does have a lot to prove. I think if he can keep at that ceiling, if he can show that that ceiling is not a ceiling, but instead his new floor, I think Dignitas is going to be in a much better spot this upcoming 2026 year. But yeah, definitely I think it's going to be around a sixth place unless he can really prove himself. But I don't know. I don't really see that coming. And this one's going to be probably very shocking to a lot of people. But I have Jose Dioto at number 7, and this one is entirely kind of similar to Hambach, entirely a meta read. And what I saw on Jose's stats page was a lot of AD fighters. I don't know if he will adapt to the meta. I think he'll be a solid jungler. Maybe 7th is too low, but I'd like to see XU succeed above Jose. But I think Jose is either going to be 6th or 7th, and XU is going to be the other one. So definitely a lower tier jungler, I think, just because he doesn't have a lot of experience with the type of meta that I really think it's going to be in 2026. And last but not least, well, I guess in this context, least, we have Kryra, who I am really excited for. I think has the most potential of any of these junglers. Definitely showed themselves to be a really, really solid jungler in NACL in Tier 2 here in North America. But it's always hard to say who's going to, if they're going to be good out of the gate, if they're going to need time to develop. So number 8 is where I'm slotting in Kryra, but I would love to move Kryra up if they can prove their skill in the LCS this year. And on to the mid lane changes for 2026. So first and foremost, mid laners now get upgraded boots for free whenever they complete their mid lane quest, which I think is going to be very, very strong, by the way. But either way, they have these new upgraded boots, upgraded stats, more move speed. Very, very nice. They also have their empowered recalls, essentially like a Baron recall or like the Symbiotic Souls last season. They also have the jungle changes, which are going to impact them a lot. Junglers, since they are in full clear meta, will either full clear or invade or try to protect from invades in the jungle. And mid lane is crucial in all three of those. You need your mid lane to have priority if you want to invade. You need mid lane to have priority if you want to protect your own camps. And you need mid lane to have priority basically all the time if you're trying to take objectives. So that's why I've dubbed mid lane a move meta, where you push and move. You want to get priority, you want to move to your jungle, you want to get something done. Could be tower dives, could be lane ganks, could be objectives, could be invades, any of those things. Either way, you're going to need your mid laner to move wherever your jungle is. And that's what I think is going to be the defining trait of the mid lane meta. So, on to my player rankings, which I think are pretty spicy as well. So first and foremost, I have APA at number 1, Quid number 2, Quad number 3, Saint number 4, Zinni, number 5, Dark Wings, number 6, Palafox, number 7, and Call Me, number 8. So those are my 1 through 8. There may be some things you see surprising on here, so let's go into a little bit more depth on each of my rankings. So, number 1, APA. Um, People might think I'm crazy for putting APA above Quid or even Quad, to be honest. But I think APA is the absolute king of the Rome meta. He had an interview with Ready Esports not too long ago where he talked about in solo queue, all he did was play these champions, the old Aurelian Soul, the Talia, old and new, that just like to push wave and move, and that sounds exactly like what I predict this meta is going to be. So even though I don't really like C9 as a team very much, I do love APA, and I think like this is his meta. I think this is exactly what he's going to be good at. People thought he was good during the AD mid meta not too long ago. I think this is going to be even better. I think we're going to see a whole new APA. I think he's going to be the best meta fit, as you can see my tag up above for APA. Anyways, I've talked long enough about APA. Number 2, I have Quid, who I think is the most cracked. I think he had an insane glow up last year on 100 Thieves and is basically the star of the offseason. Team Liquid ended up getting him. I think he's an insane player. I don't know how well he's going to fit this meta. I think he likes to skirmish a lot, which could happen. But if we have a lot of low agency full clear junglers, it might be harder to find those skirmishes. I do still think his skill is enough to just put him at number 2, but I don't know how well this meta is going to suit Quid. That we'll kind of have to wait and see. If he's even better in this meta than APA, then absolutely bump him up, but I think he's going to be a solid number 2. And right behind those two, we have Quad, which people also might be surprised by, considering the year that Quad had last year. But I will remind you, Quad domestically has always been solid. He's never really been losing to lower tier LCS mid laners or looked really bad. His Victor is good. His Annie was actually pretty good domestically, despite international. His Cassio is still one of the best in the world. And this guy is going to be a very solid mid laner for FlyQuest, and honestly could even be a little bit of a team leader with the mid lane meta. If he can move around, if he can make a map impact, with all these young players, I think he can really help them figure out exactly what to do with their leads. So, a lot of faith in Quad. I think he can do it. He's number 3 on my list. And on number 4, I have Saint, which people might think that he deserves to be a little higher, but I put him at the just above Zinni at the for the LCK CL mid laners. I do think he's a more experience in tier 1, obviously, than Zinni has. So I have him at number 4 and Zinni at number 5. I think Saint really needs to just get over his like mental boom problem. We kind of saw that last season, especially if him and Inspired butt heads. I think this could end really badly for Lion. But I have some faith. I think he's going to be in the top half of mid laners in the LCS. Saint did have some insane plays last season or last year. So I have some faith. Not much else to say. I think Saint is going to be very solid this year. And right behind him, as I already mentioned, was Zinni, who I think is going to ramp up a little bit. These are my power rankings currently. They are subject to change as we go through the year. I think Zinni could move up if he shows his stuff, but I think he's going to be basically developing, kind of be like Quid when Quid first came over. I think that's going to be Zinni. I think he's going to have kind of a no-show split 1 or 2, and then kind of really come into his own later in the year. That's what I have to expect. Then we have Darkwings, who is, I'd say, kind of similar to Zinni. Got that little bit of creativity, got a little bit more to prove, is still developing, has some experience. But Darkwings, I just really want to see him outdo the other 2 mid laners that I have in the bottom of the league. And I think he can do it, definitely. I saw some good stuff from him last year. I really want him to keep it up. I think this meta could really prove to be good for some creative picks. And I know that Darkwings has some creative picks up his sleeve. I'm just waiting for him to pull them out. So, right behind him is Palafox. I I really wanted to put Palafox higher. I love Palafox. I think that he is a really good mid laner. When he has confidence in himself and when the fans have confidence in him, I think he is very good at what he does. but I really couldn't justify putting him any higher than seventh. I could have even put him eighth, to be honest, behind Call Me, but I'm going to put him seventh. I think he's going to do good. I think he's going to have a little bit of a bounce back before it gets better. I think he had his little bit of a downturn. I think it is going to go back up. So I have him at number seven, probably pushing for number six behind Dark Wings. But this is a very, very stacked mid lane pool in the LCS, so it's kind of hard for him to even try to break into the top half. And last but not least, I have Call Me. I don't really know that much about Call Me, to be honest, but I did look at some stats. They play some good meta champs, lots of Talia, lots of other roaming picks. So if they can play that and they can play it well, then Call Me might be good, but we kind of just have to wait and see. I put them as most uncertain. Um, we'll kind of have to see what happens there. Getting into the bot lane changes here. For the new season, there were again about three things that I think are the most important, and one way that I've kind of defined the bot lane meta. So, number one, they now have that seventh item slot. You may have heard their boots, once they complete their quest, their boots go to a separate item slot, and they're allowed to purchase 6 full items for AD carries. So, incredible late game scaling. They're going to put their extra gold income to use, which is the next one. They get more gold for killing minions. They get more gold overall. They get like a bonus gold once their role quest is complete. So a lot of extra gold income there. Lots of potential scaling and gold value given to ADCs in 2026. As well, I threw the Phaelites on there. I think that the Phaelites, allowing for less jungle intervention in the lanes early, will greatly reduce bot lane's risk. I think a lot of times you'll be able to just get to your first item, get to your first 2 items without a lot of difficulty now in the bot side. You don't have to worry about jungle ganks. You'll be a little bit more aware of tower dives. It'll be just a little bit harder for people to punish you before you can get your items. So, to get to our ranking here, just to go over them all again, first we have Yon, Berserker, Rahel, Sven, Masu, Bivoy, FBI, and Sajed in that order. So 1 through 8. And let's go into a little more depth if you're wondering the reasoning here. Yon is number one because basically he's just the best AD carry in the league. He has been. I think the item slot and the gold income increase for AD carries is going to be amazing. In the past, we saw pro play really revolve around getting AD carry their items and then going into team fights. And if you can get like 2 or 3 items and go into a team fight and you have Yon on your team, you would usually win. Unless, he had some bad game or there was some huge threat on the enemy team. But either way, Yon has been the quintessential bot lane carry in the LCS. And I think with this new bot lane meta where he's getting more resources and more gold just from being a bot laner is going to have a huge, huge positive impact on Team Liquid. So Yon number one. Similarly, Berserker. When he was playing for Cloud9 a couple years ago, we saw that he was basically the king of team fighting. He had those Zeri pop-off moments, he had the pentakills. That's exactly the type of meta I'm expecting for ADC. They need to get their items and play those 5v5 team fights, and that's exactly what Berserker is good at. I don't really care if DNF went 1-22 in the Korean League. This guy's going to run the LCS, and he's going to be number 2 for sure, if not kind of fighting for that number 1 spot. Then we have Rahel, which a lot of people might disagree with, but I do think Rahel is one of the best AD carries in this league. He really, really gave DSG a win con when they didn't have one last year, and helped them nearly take out Cloud9 in that 5-game series. So I have a lot of trust in Rahel. I've heard a lot of people talking him up. They say in scrims he's a monster. I think Rahel is really where it's at for this bot lane in the LCS. I think a lot of people have a lot to prove to beat Rahel. And again, I think that his picks and his and how he likes to play the game are perfect for the bot lane meta. Then one which people probably would have liked to see higher is Sven, which I put at number 4. I think that he is just a very middle of the pack, solid LCS bot laner. I don't think that he's the best if you want to play for those mid game team fights with a 4-item AD carry who's going to carry the team fight. You know, we saw him a lot on Varus, on Corki, on things that don't just want to hyper carry a team fight. And I think that's the role he's going to continue to play. I do think he's a very good AD carry, which is why he's not lower. I think that his skill is bringing him up from where his meta differences lie. I think if he was like an average bot laner, nothing special about him, he would be like 6th or 7th. But since he is so good at the game and is probably likely a leader for the team in some ways, I put him at number 4. I think that he is going to be the 4th most impactful bot laner in the league. Then we have Masu, which I really like Masu. I would have liked to put him higher. But he has been a hyper carry. His Kaisa game in particular, crazy at Worlds 2024. So that's what I'm looking for, is something like that. I know he has it in him, but he hasn't played that style in a little while because he's been playing with Inspired and with Quad and with Bwipo. A lot of people who like to take agency and take gold. But now it's going to really be on him. I think he is going to be one of the primary carries on FlyQuest. So if he can prove himself, I think he'll be pushing for that 4th or even 3rd place slot. But it really is up to how well he can kind of get back to that play style of hyper carrying, of getting gold, of being the difference maker in a late game team fight. And he has had some bad positioning errors on the recent, but I really think that he can get it back up and be definitely a middle of the pack AD carry, at least, for Masu. Then we have Bvoy. A lot of people probably would have put Bvoy above Masu. Bvoy did have a lot more probably like carry performances, like standard carry performances. But I'm just looking to be impressed by Bvoy, excuse me, by Bvoy this upcoming year. I think that I put him most unpredictable. I think that he can do a lot, and that Ezreal game last year was pretty impressive. I think he can do a lot of damage. He can play AD carry very well. It's just it's hard to expect what you're going to get from him, but I know he can play the game well because I've seen it. So I definitely doesn't deserve to be last. I put Bvoy at number 6. I would also be happy putting FBI at number 6, who I actually put in number 7. I think Bvoy and FBI can kind of go hand in hand in those two places. FBI, I kind of put as Sven Light. I think he's very consistent. I think he's played his role incredibly well. And besides his Smolder, I don't really see him playing those like hyper carry champions. Same thing as Sven. So I'll really be looking for him to kind of change style, play something new, be the difference maker with that gold. And I think he can definitely do it. FBI's been like a kind of a quiet AD carry in the league, but I think he's pretty damn good. And I think that he can definitely thrive in this environment as long as the team's willing to play around him. So I'd say you can bump up to 6, but that's kind of the range that I see FBI in. And lastly, we have Sajid. I'd say most unproven. Champ will seem pretty standard. Lots of meta hyper carries. I think the meta will suit them. But like any rookie coming up from the NACL, it's going to be hard to kind of prove yourself until we've seen it. So 8th place goes to Sajid for me, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. And last but not least, we have support for our last role in this video. And again, here are the support changes for 2026. Number 1, they have now a control ward slot similar to the bot lane's boot slot. So they can get full items. Supports will have a control ward slot where they can now buy more items, more item components. They don't have to worry about control wards taking up a place in their inventory, which I frankly absolutely love this change. I think it's so good. I'm a support player myself. I'm so grateful for this change. It was so annoying to have a control word in your inventory and not be able to buy an extra giant belt before a team fight, not be able to buy, even finish some of my items that I had. If I was just had to buy control words, I wouldn't have enough gold for it. Either way, small tangent there. But control word slot, very good change. They have increased passive gold. Just passive gold on the support item has gone up. So they're getting a little bit more income per game, a little bit more agency, a little bit more durability, hopefully, for a lot of those engaged supports. They also have the Phalites, which help other roles control vision, taking a little bit of the pressure off of support. I think that could have a really big impact on the support meta. You probably won't have to do vision roams so often anymore because lanes will inherently be safer from jungle intervention. So I've kind of defined this meta for support as a safe scaling meta with your ADC. You want to get your ADC to those item breakpoints and team fight with them well. So I think enchanters are going to be strong. I think fighters are going to be strong, or sorry, excuse me, engagers are going to be strong for those later team fights. But probably the engagers that scale a little better, thinking like Alistar, I'm thinking like Maokai, things like that are going to be a lot better in that kind of mid game team fighting rather than maybe an early game team fighting like, a Leona or a Rel. But either way, lots of interesting meta changes for support. I'd say probably the second least changed role. We always had a support quest. I think jungle is basically the same. I think support's a little bit different, but that's what I'm expecting to see from the meta. I think it's really about keep your AD carry alive, play with them. How well can you do it? And so that leads me to my support ranking, which I think perfectly reflects the meta I just described. So we have Core JJ, Vulcan, Isles in number 3, which I think will surprise a lot of people, Seos, Cryogen, Huhi, Lions, and Ignar. And that is my ranking for the supports in LCS Split 1. So let's go in a little bit more depth here. Core JJ, will play this meta perfectly. When he was a world champion, it was this meta. It was exactly what he wants to play. You play enchanters, you play with your support, you work on getting them, or play with your ADC, excuse me. You work on getting them their items, you work on playing those team fights, and he is exactly that. Not to mention his team presence is incredible. We don't know exactly what he does, but people have talked on over and over again about how much value Core JJ provides. I think he's the best support, most impactful support in the league by far in Split 1. And just behind him, because I think it is very, very close here, is Vulcan. I think Vulcan is definitely a standout support in the league. Since we lost Busio, this competition has gotten, we lost like a big name, I guess, in the support pool here in North America. But Vulcan, definitely one of those big names. NA support, and is very good. People talk about his Alistar game and Kespa Cup and how it was very, very good. I've seen highlights, seemed really good. All around solid support. I think he can play that meta perfectly too. He's been playing a long time, and I think he can definitely shine in this meta. Then we kind of have a step down, but I do think that Isles is number 3, and let me tell you why. This guy has looked okay, has looked decent for like every year that I've seen him, even when he was playing on Dignitas. And if you can look decent on a bad team, imagine how you're going to look when you have Berserker, when you have Inspired, when you have Dokla, when you have Saint, when you have all these amazing pieces surrounding you. I think Isles is going to level up. I think he's going to learn a ton from Inspired. I think he's going to play with the team well. As far as the meta goes, I haven't seen him play those champions very much, but I bet you he's going to learn it. And I really like Isles. I think he's a funny person. I think he is really good at this game, and I think he's going to be a difference maker. I think overall, at the end of the day, he's going to be the third best support in this league, and we'll see how that pans out. Obviously, if you don't agree, let me know. Let me know down below. But yeah, I think Isles number 3. Hot take. Right behind that, I have Seos, who I also think has been kind of unfairly criticized. I think he's been pretty consistent, pretty solid. As for the meta, again, kind of hard to tell, but I think he's going to be a solid support. I put him at number 4. Then we have Cryogen. I have high hopes for Cryogen. His pool seems to be like exactly what we're looking for in the meta. It's just about really whether or not he can keep up with the rest. I put a number 5 because that's what I'm hoping he reaches, to be honest, because I'm a Fly supporter, I'm a Fly believer. But who knows? I think he could end up anywhere from kind of 5 to 7. I don't think he's going to end up last, but I really hope he's on the upper end of that. And that's kind of what I'm expecting to see from him based on the little that I know about him, the little bit of gameplay that I have seen. Then we're on to Huhi. Huhi's always fine. He plays support. He plays it well. I think some of his time as a mid laner will kind of help if he has to pull out some ranged champions, some enchanters in the support pool. So I think he's a step above Lions and Ignar, but not much to say about these bottom tier supports. Um, they can probably all trade places depending on who shows up at the day, but I'm not really big on Ignar. I think he's been pretty inconsistent. I'm not really big on Lions. I don't think he did that much last year. He did make Henna look good, so maybe he's going to help out his team decent amount, make Sajed look good. But yeah, it's hard to tell with these supports. But that will have to do it for my power rankings for each player in the LCS in all 5 roles and a small breakdown of the different changes. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know again if you agree or disagree, what you think, what your thoughts are. I would love to hear your rankings. Um, but these are mine. I'm pretty happy with these ratings. I did some research, looked into each player. It was it was a bit of a long process, but I was able to find out some important data, and I think I'm pretty happy with my ratings. Obviously, I'll update them between split to split and see if it looks like some people are exceeding expectations, falling below them, or maybe even right where I expect them to be, which would obviously kind of be the dream for me. But please make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed, if you got this far. Always looking to remind you to subscribe as well. I will have content pushed out pretty regularly across the LCS season, and I'll catch you next time.